So we'll give it a quick second before we turn it on. Remember what a fade is. You can turn that up. We'll just bring it back to 0. We're ready. You can zoom out. Is this going to be in our way? I don't think so. No, okay.
I think we should start with that.
We should probably start the meeting.
Good evening. I call the December 6, 2021 Lakeville City Council meeting to order. Welcome and thank you for your attendance. Before we proceed, please check your electronic devices and ensure they are silenced. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilor Trizano.
Present.
Councilor May. Councilor Winchowski.
Here.
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Councilor Stivitt. Here. Councilor King.
Present.
Councilor Goldberg.
Get used to it.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. In lieu of invocation, please join me in 20 seconds of silence and self-reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up on the agenda is public comments, and I'll ask, until we reach the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda, I ask to have any comments relative to council's action to adopt the city's 2022 budget and the adoption of the city's 3-year capital improvement plan be reserved until we reach that portion of tonight's agenda. Now I'll open the floor for public comment. I request anyone wishing to address council, please step to the lectern and proceed after stating your name and address. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Please speak directly into the microphone and address all comments to this chair. There will be another public comment opportunity following communication from city officials. The floor is open.
Hi, my name is Janet Rhodes. My address is 925 South Washington Avenue. I am the caregiver of a disabled combat veteran who served 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 tour in Iraq. In November of 2019, we purchased our home in the 4th Ward for 2 main reasons. We love the view of the lake, and we desired a quiet neighborhood. Our home was perfect up until the summer of 2021, when the city put up an air raid siren directly across the street from our home. My husband suffers from severe PTSD. During his time overseas, he went out on many missions that involved direct combat, and he was shot twice during those battles. He logged over 100,000 driving miles in just one tour, during which his Humvee was hit by an IED. Almost every night during his first 2 tours, he was awoken by the air raid sirens warning of rocket attacks. These sirens meant there were incoming rockets, and he had to go to the bunker immediately. PTSD is caused by living through such intense trauma that your brain becomes rewired. This redirection causes intense physical and emotional reactions to stimuli that reminds the sufferer of the initial trauma or event. Symptoms of PTSD include intrusive, distressing memories, rapid heart rate, anger, depression, memory loss, sleeplessness, flashbacks, and hallucination. My husband has suffered from all of these symptoms. The city chose a working-class neighborhood to put the air raid siren. Most families in the immediate vicinity of the siren have children in bed by 10 p.m., and they are themselves settling down for the night because we get up early for work the next day. My husband no longer sleeps with his family. He sleeps downstairs as far away from the noise as possible. The siren has caused him extreme distress, along with waking our youngest son up many nights. We have a legal right to quiet enjoyment of our property, but since the air raid siren went up, we no longer get that right. Mrs. Winchesky explained the city consulted counselors who said that those with PTSD would not be affected by the noise. Well, I'm here to testify that the air raid siren is the absolute direct cause of unwanted memories, flashbacks, anger, and many other symptoms of PTSD on a daily basis. If the siren was there before purchasing our property, we would have made the decision to look elsewhere for a home. I am here to make sure everyone in the city is clear as to just how much pain and suffering the siren is causing local families. Soldiers are trained to follow orders, do their job, and not complain. You will not hear other veterans complain about this because it is ingrained in them to drink water and drive on. Well, my husband has a family that loves him and wants more for him than to have him hide in his own home. I am more than willing to compromise. The noon siren is drowned out by the noise of the traffic and the workday and the general sounds of the day. If you discontinue the 10 p.m. siren and just leave the noon siren, you won't hear from me again. However, if you continue to sound the 10 p.m. siren for the sake of my husband and family, I will seek out an attorney and sue the city in hopes of regaining the right to our quiet enjoyment of our property. I'm here today so you will not be able to claim ignorance of the pain and suffering the siren is causing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Rhodes. I am the husband of Jana, and I'm at 925 South Washington as well. I am the veteran she speaks of. I am an 8-year Army combat veteran. I've served with the 82nd Airborne Division and the 7th Special Forces Group in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I do suffer from PTSD. I am rated by the VA as 100% safe. I served in Operation Enduring Freedom from 2005 to 2006, Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2007 to 2008, and a NATO campaign operation from 2009 to 2010. The total deployment time was 29 months. When I got to Afghanistan, my first tour, I met my NCO, and I remember him telling me that you don't know crap about your job, use the more explicit word, so you're going out on missions. And so I did. That night I was sitting in my bunk writing a letter home to my mother. This was the first one back. When suddenly that air raid siren went off. I didn't know what to do because no one ever told me anything when I first got there about air raid sirens or procedures on what to do or what happens next. So the guys in my room I shared with, they scrambled to get their bulletproof vests on, weapons, etc. It didn't matter if you were in uniform, PTs, or your underwear or not. You get your vest on, helmet on, and grab your weapon and run to the nearest concrete bunker. Imagine 200 guys geared up in armor and weapons, crammed into 3 concrete blocks that's 4 foot by 4 foot by 10 foot with the ground underneath. It's not a pretty picture, and it stinks out of it. And God forbid someone actually sat on a camel's butt. You had 30 seconds to get your gear and get to your bunker when that air raid siren went off. Didn't matter if it was once a night or 10 times a night, you repeated this every time. I heard that air raid siren go off almost every night that first deployment. Iraq was no different. From night 1 to the last night on month 13, every night that damn siren went off. And every time following an explosion or several. Some closer than others, most just hit the ground, but sometimes people got hurt and sometimes they died. Understand that only guys that watch the radars or other sensory devices can determine which way those attacks were coming from. We lived every night in fear, not knowing which way the attack was coming from or where it was going to land. We often ask ourselves, is tonight the night 200 guys cramped in a concrete block make the death toll lose? You never know. You have no control over indirect engagements, at least in direct fire. You can make a choice or two and hope to live long enough to make another. The air raid siren in Ludington is the exact same sounding siren we had at our former operating bases. I do not exaggerate that. The first night I heard that siren, about jumped out of my skin. On some nights it catches me so off guard, I'm looking for my beard and my weapon. After the siren goes off at 10 p.m., I cannot get any good sleep. It brings back too many bad memories and feelings. It makes me jump when I'm not expecting it. I don't share a bed with my wife because that stupid siren makes me jump and keeps me up all night. I sleep on the opposite side of our home where it's barely audible. Still there though. Since I live right across the street from the darn thing, I humbly ask this honorable city to remove the siren as it serves no purpose other than historic nostalgia for like few lifetime residents. There are no rocket attacks or atomic bombs. We are not surrounded by enemies. Please consider my request. Thank you.
Floor is open for any further public comment.
Tom Rada, Dowland Street. Let me first acknowledge the perseverance of City Clerk Deb Luskin. Not only had to sit through the last meeting's marathon, lasting nearly 4 hours, but after all that, had to faithfully chronicle it in the minutes. For the last year, I've been attending city commission meetings in Scottville, and though their meetings tend to have fewer issues and shorter durations, the template minutes of those meetings always tend to be 2 pages in length and rarely mention deliberations or the policy under discussion, only decisions. When I miss a Scottville meeting as I am tonight, I know I won't be able to capture what actually happened at that meeting just by reading the minutes. To Clerk Luskin's credit, if I miss the Ludington Council meeting, I can read her prepared minutes and know what was discussed and practically everything of consequence that happened in my absence. As regards Scottville, tonight they are set to choose meeting dates for 2022, convening at 6:30, which fall on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. During my lifetime and before, Scottville has always met on the first and third Mondays of the month, while similarly, Ludington has met on the second and fourth. City Manager Foster strongly urged at the last meeting and before that for city councilors to consider attending public meetings of other bodies in the county. Scottville's move has made it impossible for Ludington councilors to do just that without being absent from their own meeting. I strongly urge this council to consider this when they decide on their meeting dates for 2022 at the next meeting, should Scottville pass their meeting date resolution tonight. When the only 2 incorporated cities in Mason County meet on the same night at the same time, it negatively affects those who have interest in both cities and slows cooperative efforts between cities. Please consider moving 2022 meetings to the first and third Mondays of the month. Lastly, let me thank City Manager Foster for allowing this council to reconsider their choice made at the last meeting to reject disclosure of already disclosed information in my FOIA appeal. FOIA is a pro-disclosure statute where the burden of proof is on you, and any exemptions claimed must be individually justified in response. Had allowable exemptions been the issue, then Mr. Alvarado's memo to the council would have been applicable. But as pointed out by Councilor Trezano, it was law on law, but totally divorced from the issue that many exemptions did not fall under privacy or any other exemptions and should never have been redacted. I would appreciate your reconsideration in order to save us both a few trips to the courthouse to prove my point. Thank you.
Any further public comment? If not, I'll close public comment and move on to approval of the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the council minutes of the November 22nd, 2021 regular meeting, approval of the council minutes of the November 22nd, 2021 closed session, approval of bill payment for the period commencing November 22nd, 2021, and the adoption of this agenda.
Mayor Miller, I have just a comment on the last minutes. Those of you that have your iPad up, that's at the bottom of page 13. And Deb, I talked to you a little bit about this today. It says, Councilor Winchesky stated that it looks like the information that was requested by Tom Rada had already been printed in the newspaper. And so she does not see what the problem is with providing them with this information. And he had already obtained it from the newspaper. My gist was that he already received this information from the newspaper, but I deny him the information on the FOIA request. But he already has the information from the newspaper. So I just wanted to make that straight, that was my intention. So just a change of that intention.
Thank you. That is recorded in these minutes. I seek a motion to approve this consent agenda as is presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Truzano, second by Councilor Winchesky to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any questions or additions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up, we have a scheduled public hearing regarding the adoption of the City of Ludington's 2022 budget and the adoption of the 3-year capital improvement plan for the City of Ludington. Excuse me. Action on the approval or adoption of these actions will follow council's hearing of public comment. Please note, I request all comments, questions, and concerns be directed to this chair and voiced after stating your name and address. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes, and anyone wishing to address the issue a second time will yield until all others have had an additional chance to speak. The floor is open for public comment regarding the adoption of the city's 2022 budget and the adoption of the 3-year capital plan improvement plan for the city. Anyone at all? For a third time? I see no public comment, hear no public comment, and I will close public comment for this public hearing. Council, you've had an opportunity to reflect on the adoption of the city's 2022 budget and the adoption of the 3-year capital improvement plan. It is now incumbent upon you to take action. Before you is the matter of adopting the budget, the adoption of the capital improvement plan. These actions will be taken separately. First, pursuant to the requirements of City Charters 8.2 and 8.5, subsection 2C, I seek a motion to adopt the City of Ludington's budget for the year 2022 as is presented.
I move to approve that, Your Honor.
Second.
I'm sorry, Jim. Motion by Councilor Johnson, seconded by Councilor Truzano to adopt the City of Ludington's 2022 budget as presented. Do we have any questions or comments?
Just as an update for council, there were a couple of changes when this was originally presented. Obviously, the biggest change is in Carter Park, where we received a $300,000 grant, and accordingly, we added in a $725,000 estimate for the construction of the buildings themselves. So there were a few other small changes, but nothing of massive increase or decrease.
I think just a thank you to all the people that are working in this, Deb and Jackie and Mitch, and all the supervisors who have to look ahead and plan for that budget. And Mr. Soper, you finally get your bathrooms, and so congratulations on that. Wonderful news on that too. That was a great addition to the budget. But thanks to everybody who worked so hard, chief of police coming up with those budgets at the end.
Any further comment on the adoption of the city's 2022 budget? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Second, pursuant to the requirements of the city charter, section 8.11, I seek a motion to adopt 3-year capital improvement plan for the city of Ludington as is presented. Do I have a motion?
I will make that motion, Your Honor.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilor Johnson, second by Councilor Winchester to adopt a 3-year capital improvement plan for the city of Ludington as is presented. Council, we have any questions, comments, or concerns? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Motion is carried. And again, to echo Councilor Winchester's thoughts, thank you to City Manager Rich Foster, Deb Luskin, City Clerk, Jackie, assistant to the City Manager, and all the supervisors. This is a labor. It's not a labor of love. I can pretty much speak. I appreciate the effort to get it right and come back with any corrections, even up to today, to make sure we got it scored. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have committee and staff reports. We'll hear first from the Finance and Personnel Committee. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have no report this evening. We do have a couple of action items. First presentation on ordinance number 462-21. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 417-19. The ordinance establishing the compensation of elected officials and to repeal all ordinances in conflict herewith. Section 1 of ordinance number 436-20 is hereby amended to read as follows. The annual salary for the city treasurer commencing January 1st, 2022 shall be $54,600. And I move to, well, this is first presentation. And the second item we have is also first presentation of ordinance number 463-21. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 437-20. The ordinance establishing the compensation of elected officials and to review all ordinances in conflict herewith. Section 1 of ordinance number 437-20 shall be amended to read as follows. The annual salary for the city clerk commencing January 1st, 2022 shall be $71,212. And again, that is first presentation. That's all I have for this evening.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think we might have had one of those was for the treasurer and one was for the clerk. I think you said clerk for both of them.
I did?
I think so.
Madam Clerk, would you make sure that those two are separated? First ordinance read was for the treasurer, second is for the council, for the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have public safety, public utilities. Councilor May is not in attendance. It's all right. We'll ask for this. Yep. Please. Doing this on the fly. Councilor May is not here. I can give no report for the public safety and public utilities. However, there's an action item on this list. And I will put forward this motion for him. I seek a motion to adopt ordinance 464-21, adding state law compliant provisions to the city's code of ordinances relating to the deployment of small cell wireless communication facilities throughout the city as presented. We had this first presentation last meeting. Time between then and now for any questions or concerns. I'm glad to take those now. I see none. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Well, we actually-
Oh, excuse me. I want to skip down.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll support it.
Motion by Counselor Stivens, seconded by Counselor Bolger to adopt ordinance 464-21, adding state law compliant provisions to the city's code of ordinances relating to the deployment of small cell wireless communication facilities throughout the city. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Counselor Winchowski,
Yes.
Counselor Stevens. Yes. Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Truzano,
Aye.
Counselor Bolger,
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
Motion is carried. Thank you. That's all I have for public safety, public utilities. Building and license is next, Counselor Truzano.
Yes, I have a brief report and several action items. You all have in your packets a brief report on the short-term rental information. We have 30 licenses that are out there. We have a wait list of 1130 as of 2. If you take a look in terms of the work order type corrections, it's pretty routine. I do want to note that the police department has no record of issues. So the program has been pretty successful. There is one thing that I'd like to make note of. You will see in the report that there are 6 properties that are grandfathered in. I'm not sure why they are, and I expect to bring this up at the Building and License Committee beginning in January, depending upon what the state does with its rentals. But quite frankly, I don't know why we have 6 properties that are not part of the program, which they should be. Other than that, if there's any questions about it, please let me know. Okay, in terms of action items, first action items happen to be on short-term rentals. Adopt ordinance number 465-21, an increase in number of short-term rental licenses. The city council of the city of Ludington finds and determines that the amendment set forth below to increase the total number of short-term rental licenses authorized within the city from 30 to 50 is necessary. And such an amendment will better serve the interests of the city, the city's property owners and prospective renters, as well as community as a whole. And I so move.
I'll support.
Motion by Counselor Truzano, seconded by Counselor Stivens to adopt ordinance 465-21, increasing the maximum number of short-term rental licenses issued by the city from 30 to 50 as presented. Do you have any questions or comments? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor King,
Aye.
Counselor Stevens. Yes. Counselor Truzano,
Aye.
Counselor Bolger,
Yes.
Counselor Winchowski,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
Motion is carried. Thank you, Counsel.
Thank you. Second action item is the first presentation of ordinance number 466-21, waterfront maritime district. What we're basically doing is just adding retail to principal uses. This district is designed to provide a bridge between established business areas and waterfront areas. The district already allows for artisan shops as a special land use. And this change will eliminate that verbiage and add retail, inclusive of artisan shops as a permitted principal use. That's just the first presentation.
Councilor Truzano, I just have a question.
Yes.
Right now, we have a waterfront 1 and a waterfront 2. So will we just have a waterfront 1? Or will there still be 2?
Well, actually, there's 4 different waterfront districts. What the planning commission, in particular the zoning committee, is going to take lead in redoing, or taking a look at redoing the whole zoning ordinance. And taking on this whole issue of 4 different waterfront districts will be part of that process. If you remember from our discussion in the budget 2 weeks ago, money has been set aside to help hire a consultant to do that. The zoning committee met a week or so ago, and we're going to have another meeting early the end of this week. At the end of this week, again, to really start developing a plan.
Thank you.
The last action item is to adopt the 2021 master plan. The purpose of the master plan is to serve as the official document used to guide the future development and growth of the city and the management of its resources. The master plan provides a framework and basis for future decision-making and establishes the vision and direction for the city. Before I make the motion, I would just like to thank not only the council here, in particular Council Chesky, who helped edit and redraft some of the language, the members of the planning commission, as well as the text committee, and of course the city staff with Heather Tykowski, Karen Alderman, city clerk Debbie Luskin, and Foster, and everybody else on the here in City Hall who took a look at this, added suggestions, helped doing some edits. Extraordinary process, and let's thank everyone for doing it. So I so move that we adopt the 2021 master plan.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilor Terzano, seconded by Councilor Winchester to adopt the City of Lexington's 2021 master plan as presented. Council, we have any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor. Moving on to Cemetery, Parks, and Recreation. Councilor Stewart.
We have nothing to report, no action items this evening.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to communication from city officials. Anything council would like to bring?
I actually have something that I would like to bring up really quick. Just to kind of talk a little bit about the Shop with the Pot Pie event. The event had 61 pies and we raised over $9,021. And I'm not sure if everyone knows this or not, but the mayor makes the best pies. And he's really amazing in the kitchen. And I'm only saying this because I lost a bet and I think he cheated. And that's all you know.
That was more than I thought it would be, Councilor. But she's right.
If I may ask on that, is it true that the city manager backed out of a bidding war?
It's true.
My report comes up shortly.
Yeah, he put it through committee and it didn't get the, I think his wife had veto power. But very proud of, thank you, Carrie, I appreciate it. Officer Morris, who spearheaded it this year. This is a program that's been around for a few years now, started a few years ago, previous Chief of Police Barnett, and at the time, Officer Custer brought this to the city. It was a big success at the start. It's gotten nothing but bigger since. And now the bar is over $9,000 for the next time. So if you'd like one of those pies that I hear so much about, it's your wallet.
And I also just want to, just on behalf of like school systems in general, you all know that I'm also a teacher and we have a lot of students that benefit from this Shop with the Cop program, and it really truly is amazing. And so to see that it's raising so much money, it's more and more kids that they get to service with bigger and better presents and prizes. So just, that's pretty amazing.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else, City Council, to communicate? We'll move on to City Manager report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one item of clarification. I had the pie last year. The mayor made it for me after the fact because I lost it last year as well. Actually, I believe I lost it to former Chief Barnett. And I lost it again this year, and it was kind enough to make it for me. It was not intended to drive the competition between the two of you. I just really wanted to have that pie.
She started.
I did.
So Apologies on that. Just a few items to note, I want to bring up quick. The playgrounds, we are working with, and have been truly honored that Jeff and Jean White, as well as LASD, are willing to donate the playground equipment from Lakeview, as well as the playground equipment from Franklin, to the city for our use. I know that Kurt Kathmer is reviewing the equipment with representatives from playground equipment manufacturers and suppliers to make sure that it's of quality, what it would cost to relocate it. And then we'll be having discussions with Russ Soper, as it just so happens, and other folks around the city to look at different locations for this equipment to be relocated to. Because we've got some places that could use some new equipment. And especially the Lakeview equipment is really, really nice and could use a nice new home. And the Whites were generous enough to donate that to the city. So that's great news. Radio communication, if you had a chance this morning, the mayor and I were on WMOM. I know he goes on WLDN tomorrow morning. Doing my best, and I know he's doing his best to continue that open communication with the public. And so we're on every Monday before city council meetings on WMOM so that folks can hear that and be able to hear about the city council meeting that evening, as well as other items that they decided to talk about or ask questions about that morning. Sometimes it's a little bit more open-ended than other times, but I think it's still of use to the general public. Another item of note, I think we've got it settled now. I was working with District 10 Health Department, Spectrum Health, to set up a COVID testing site within the city as an alternative, because they aren't able to test as many people as what is desired at Spectrum and through District 10 Health Department right now. And so it looks like starting next Tuesday, we will have another testing location at Harborview Marine. So that will be going on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays over at Harborview. We're working on final details now, but hopefully that works out, and we'll utilize that until essentially they don't need it anymore until we get really close to April. Beyond that, you have my written report, which has a few other items, but unless there are other questions, comments, or concerns, sir, that's all I have for my report this evening. I do have one potential action item as well. Okay, perfect. Then I will move right into the potential action item. As everyone remembers, we had a FOIA appeal come before the City Council at the last meeting. Apologies again. In the intervening time between then and now, we had received an email communication with essentially a notice to file a lawsuit against the city with what I would refer to as a settlement offer from Mr. Rada regarding that FOIA appeal. As such, in my communications with Chief Kozel, Mayor Miller, as well as Attorney Hammersley, we've had some discussions. But in the end, my opinion on this is that I cannot make these decisions on a settlement. It has to come to council. I think you know where Chief Kozel stands on this issue with regards to the FOIA coordinator's perspective on this. But I did want to bring this settlement offer back to City Council because it is something of a formality that I think that council needs to consider. So that is kind of the introduction, because I believe all of you understand the circumstance before we do.
So, Your Honor, I would suggest, if I understand the offer, in lieu of being sued, if we were to amend our previous disclosure to include things already in the public notice, that would resolve the matter. Now, I realize that the council took a strong position supporting Mr. Alvarado at the last meeting, but it would seem like we'd be giving up nothing or almost nothing and saving some number of thousands of dollars of potential attorney's fees.
I guess I would just like to ask Councilor Bulger, because you're an attorney, do you feel that the city would have any liability there? I mean, you know, the information has been put out by a local newspaper. So it didn't come from the city, correct?
Well, the initial report was a report that Chief Kozel did a news release on. Now, there may have been one or two facts that came sourced from other media, but as I understand what we would be releasing is essentially saying that 3 older adults were in an accident. You know, we last time said we'd take out birth dates and I think ages and the basic facts that were in the release would be what's being requested in addition.
So couldn't we, the release that Chief Colson put out, couldn't we just give that to Mr. Rada and that would take care of our part of the whole thing?
But I think we would have to, whatever the written report was, we would have to amend some of the deletions, but not all.
Attorney Hammersley, can I ask you a question? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you had a chance to review Attorney Alvarado's response to council. And I think what you had mentioned last time is that according to the statute of the law, you were making the appropriate decision that would be supported by court. Is that a correct review of what we had talked about yesterday, at the last meeting? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't characterize, I'm not one to ever predict what a court is going to do.
Right.
So I try very hard not to give any percentage chance or any sort of probability. It's not up to me to decide, and I can't give you a sense of what ultimate factors will be used by a court. What I can tell you is, as we sort of discussed at the last meeting, there are criteria that the court will look at that relate to privacy. There are a number of cases, many of them cited in Attorney Alvarado's memorandum. Obviously, Mr. Rada has also cited this McIntosh case and other cases that exist. Each case represents a specific factual circumstance and set of information that was reviewed by the court. They always come up with different, results, and part of our job as attorneys is trying to figure out, well, what is our case most similar to, right? In this instance, you have a good amount of information that is included on these forms, and several aspects of it have been redacted. And Attorney Alvarado's opinion was that those are all justified under the statute as implicating the privacy exemption of the FOIA disclosure statute. That I don't see any reason why that would be wrong. And when it comes down to practically what is likely to happen, if Mr. Rada were to sue the city, then that starts a lawsuit, right? So civil court, we've got filings the city has to answer. Ultimately, you're likely to be in a situation where you're in mediation. So this whole question may come up again in that context, where Councilmember Vulture's suggestion could potentially be, what carries the day, and could lead to a resolution of this suit, even though it's been filed and presumably decided tonight, and that might be so. I think if it ultimately got to a judge, it's possible that the judge would review each of the unredacted forms and determine for themselves what exemption applies to which piece of information that is likely to be, to take some time. Again, I think it's correct to say that, you know, my understanding is if the city was sued, likely would have insurance counsel defend the city in that instance. And so that would be based on the insurance policy in terms of defense. And, you know, I support Attorney Alvarado's opinion here, the law that he cites and the determinations made. I have not gone through all of the unredacted video and all the unredacted the documentation and determined for myself whether any of those are appropriate or not. So it's hard for me to speak to how the court is going to determine. I can tell you though that that's likely to happen. That would likely happen. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that is. It's a little bit in terms of what to expect, but it's hard for me to think about.
Yes, thank you.
If I may, Your Honor, everything you say is absolutely correct. The city council also has the authority to, as we tried to do the last time, accept the appeal, but still release the information that is out there in the public. I think that we would be protected in so doing. I'd like to make a formal motion that we do release information that is out there to the public, including the age, city of residence, gender, and personal phone call. Support.
Mr. Mayor, we could just look at this too. I'm not an attorney. Two attorneys are speaking here, and I respect what they're saying too. But I also feel that the people that have worked on this FOIA redaction and given the information they feel is legally appropriate, we have to look at and say, do we support their work or not? Chief Kozel, we know where he stands on this. There's an active investigation going on, and he feels that we should stand behind that. And I just feel we need to understand that Mr. Rada is doing what he's doing since he's got the information already that he needs. And we have done nothing wrong. I feel I would like to stand behind our board coordinator and Chief Kozel and refuse to agree to this concession that Mr. Rada.
Your Honor, if I may, I think we have the duty to try to follow the law, and I'm not at all disagreeing with the initial disclosure that was prepared by Mr. Alvarado. However, when you look at what we would be disclosing, it's essentially what the chief put out the day of the accident or shortly thereafter in a public disclosure or press release. If the information was important enough that we would deny it to a person who would ask for it in a FOIA request, then we probably shouldn't disclose it in a press release when things start. As I said at the last meeting, I think everything in that press release was entirely appropriate. The chief has a duty to try to work with the media and let people know what's happening in the city when it affects his department. So essentially, we'd be doing what the city did initially, and we'd be doing it potentially tonight without investing a lot more attorney's fees. Now, we might win the case, we might lose the case, but in principle, we would be trying to protect. When you think about it, we let that horse out of the barn at the time of the accident. So, yes, they stand behind Carlos and his memo, but sometimes as council members, we have to be practical and preserve the city's fisc in a fight that we may or may not lose for a principle that's already been abandoned.
If I may, Your Honor, my motion does not state in any way, shape, or form any lack of support for our FOIA lawyer or for our police chief. Any insinuation to that, I think is just wrong. Again, as Councilman Bolger said, the information has been put out there, or some of the information has been put out there. It's been put out there by a city employee. Whether or not Mr. Rada has the information is almost immaterial. And quite frankly, I don't see why we should undergo the expense of a lawsuit, which we may win or we may lose. Wouldn't the same thing just be easily resolved because everything that we're going to put out there is already out there.
May I ask a clarifying question on the motion? Is the motion dealing specifically with the information that is, or the information that has already been released of the two persons that are essentially identified or partially identified within press releases, or is this for all those involved in the accident? Because there were 3 pedestrians that were struck, only 1 pedestrian information was given out. So you have 2 other pedestrians that essentially, other than Grand Rapids, there's no other information given. So that's why I want to comment.
That other information has gotten out there in the public. My motion is really basically the motion that Councilman Bolger made at the last meeting. I understand that the information that was in the press release was somewhat limited, that it didn't cover it. But all this other information is already out there. So.
Before I ask any questions or have any comment, we haven't heard from Councilman Kane or Councilman Johnson yet. This will jump together. If you'd like to add to this conversation.
Well, I want to make sure that the city is not going to be held liable if we release the information from the people in Grand Rapids. And, can they come back and sue the city for releasing their information? That's what I want to make sure of. If it wasn't for that, I'm fine to give them, whatever he wants. But I just want to make sure that the city is not going to be held liable for putting out information that maybe we weren't supposed to.
I can't say one way or another, Councilor. We really, you don't know.
Yeah, can I chime in on that? I think for what, if Councilman Johnson, if what you're asking is whether Councilman Trezano's motion, the release of age, city of residence, and personal pronouns is likely to lead to liability to the city, I would say the likelihood of that is small.
Okay.
On behalf of the people who are from where the other victims in the tragedy. So that's my best guess. It's a very small chance of liability on the city for releasing that information.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
And I would say that I am persuaded by Jack's comment and the city attorney's comment about if this were to go to trial, I would think one of the first things the judge would do would get us together and mediate. How do you solve this with the least amount of effort? And to do that would be to release the information that's already known.
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Is there any policy right now the city holds regarding the release of FOIA information? when redacted information is available, will be sent out. Is there any policy that the city has about releasing information that has been redacted?
I guess I'm not 100% understanding the question.
This particular case is in litigation still, correct?
And under investigation, yes.
Under investigation. Does the city have any policy existing now that prohibits them or allows them to release redacted information? Or is that solely a policy of the police chief?
I guess I'm still not understanding. So the context would have to be a FOIA request, is that right? So you're saying anytime that there's a FOIA request and a production of documents is provided to the requesting party.
Even without a FOIA request, when is it okay to release redacted information?
That
And who makes that
would be
decision?
highly fact dependent and circumstantially dependent. No, you can't.
All right.
Everybody gets stated.
I kind of expected that sheet. What are the ramifications of disclosing information that's been redacted prior to litigation being settled?
Prior to an investigation being completed, I think is what you're going after. Anything can happen as far as identification of this witnesses, victims, anybody involved. There could be contact made with them, which could deter our investigation. That's the biggest issue with releasing private information. You want to try to keep that close to your chest so you have the anonymity of those people up to the, maybe possibly a trial.
Do you publicly release any information that has been redacted after settlement? Or is that done only upon request through the court?
Upon request.
So I just want to make sure that I understood what you said, and that it's pending an investigation, and if information that is not supposed to be given to the public is somehow tampered with, we'll use those in quotes lightly, it could hinder an investigation.
Yeah, it could make people not want to testify. I mean, they want to protect their privacy, so.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I can inquire of the chief, was there anything in your initial press release that was a danger of that?
No. However, in this investigation, it's very large. There is hundreds of pronouns in this investigation that are being utilized. For me to go back and try to dissect this document to determine which pronouns I shall or shall not release is going to be very difficult. We're going to wind up back in here again because I didn't release something that maybe somebody believes that I should have released. And that's just on the pronoun angle.
So Chief, is this, I guess I'm not sure if the information that Mr. Rudd is after is just the name of the victims, or is he also after the name of the person that was driving the vehicle?
I do not believe that he's asked for any names. I believe that he's asked for the information that's already been released in the 2 news releases that could or could not be still in the actual report or reports.
I can read you specifically what he's asked for. In this email, is the defendant needs only provide, defendant, the city's not a defendant yet. There's no lawsuit. Defendant needs only provide both reports with anything beyond street addresses, phone numbers, date of birth. Private information traditionally redacted in such reports throughout the years. Plaintiff, again, Mr. Rada, has been receiving police reports from the city of Ludington, unredacted. So he's specifically asking for the information, but he's exempting street addresses, phone numbers, date of birth. So that what he's classifying as traditionally private information that several cases relate to, and we're just at this, we're on this knife edge whether age and pronouns were cited.
and city residents.
If I may, Your Honor? Sure. Two things. One, this is the second time in recent months that this has come up. And this is the second time that the council's been faced with a conundrum, whereby the police department has released names and information, and then the FOIA attorney comes. Now, I understand your role, I understand your responsibility, but it's put us in this type of situation. I do have a suggestion that in future reports, and it's a way really to do professional writing, is you get rid of pronouns. It's witness one, it's witness two, it's victim one, it's victim two, whatever. Come up with another description of these things, and and then maybe that helps you just in terms of how you're dealing with it. You're not worried about hundreds and hundreds of pronouns in this process. And in response to Councilman Johnson's, we face liability on both sides. We face potential liability, albeit Attorney Hammerson has said probably minimal liability if we release the information. But we also face liability if this thing goes to court and the court doesn't agree with the city's position. So if you're looking for definitive answers, I know you're not going to get them.
Your Honor, I have a question for the manager, if I may. Historically, back in the dark ages when I was city attorney, if we were defended by our carrier, the policy was that the deductible includes attorney's fees, so that starting at $1 until we reach the deductible, we'd have to reimburse the attorney fees if they defended us.
No, most of those, it is covered by insurance up to a point, and then we cover it at that point. Then we have an existing reserve account with MIRMA that we also cover from that account as well. So there won't, if the council would determine now, we're going to move forward with keeping the exemptions as are, and the decision was made last week, or 2 weeks ago, then theoretically no taxpayer dollars will be associated with that expense immediately. That would be essentially what I would refer to as insurance dollars that have been held by MIRMA at that point in time.
Council, we ready to move on this? Do we have any other input? We have a motion by Councilor Trezano, seconded by Councilor Bolger to release previously redacted information in reference to Ludington Police Report 042, 21-3513, releasing the date of birth / ages, city residents, gender, and personal pronouns.
Not date of birth. It was just age.
Age, thank you. Age,
The motion was
gender, and
age,
personal pronouns.
age,
City of
city
residence.
residents, and personal pronouns.
Capture all that, Madam Clerk?
I wrote down age, city of residents, and personal.
There you go.
Leave as well.
Motion is to release redacted information. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
That's close enough. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Stevens?
No.
Counselor Trezano?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Bolger?
Yes.
Counselor Mancheski?
No.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
4 ayes, 2 nays.
Motion is carried. Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate the conversation always.
So we will work with Attorney Alvarado and Chief of Police Bozel to unredact those portions of the reports.
Can I make just a comment? As long as you're going to be talking with Mr. Alvarado, I would appreciate it if you would let him know that this was a tough decision for us, two separate evenings, and that it's not always going to come down to this. I mean, I feel that what he has done for us has been a very good service to the city. And I would want him in no way to think that the city council doesn't agree with what he's done.
Absolutely, happy to do that, and I know Councilor Terzano's comments, Attorney Hammersley has already expressed some of those comments, and I'll be sure that both he and I follow up with Mr. Alvarado here. That is all I have now, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mayor report. Happy to report that the Santa mailbox has been posted in Rotary Park. For those folks who are unfamiliar, kids put their letters to Santa at the beautiful mailbox, and they are all answered. Handwritten answered. And Santa's elves go without names, but bless everyone. Actually, that is done by residents of the city and volunteer. It took me a minute to get over that because there are many responses to it. You gotta get them back by the end of December. So it's open if you know anybody that wants something from Santa, put it in the mailbox. This is a school district issue, but the elementary schools will soon be vacated and students will be moved over to the new elementary complex. The elementary schools are having farewell, so if you have any personal attachment, Lakeview School has not set a time or a date yet, but Franklin and Foster are the evening of December 16th, Franklin 5 o'clock, Foster 6 o'clock. Foster has yearbooks. They want to make this as an enjoyable experience as possible, so I want to make sure the message is out there and that people take full advantage of it. If there's a piece of memory they want to hold on to, get one last look at. The last thing I have is far more serious than that. While we look forward to all the smiles, bright lights, and festivities of the holidays, there's another side of that coin, and I just want to make everyone aware that this is not a time of joy for everyone. There are folks who actually suffer greatly during the times of these holidays because it takes them back to a happier time that they don't share right now and causes a lot of depression. The time change, the lighting of the day change, all compacts into a short period of time when those folks who don't have the opportunity to share what they used to do, the family traditions at Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, all compacted in 5 or 6 weeks, it really puts a lot of pressure. So the best you can do for anybody is reach out. If you have somebody that has any signal whatsoever, or you just notice that they're going to be alone, a simple word of, hey man, we're here for you. If there's anything you do, come to my house. Whatever you can possibly do for those folks, and I can't point anybody out in particular, but I know it does affect a lot of people. So as best we can, please keep those folks in mind when we see all the other festivities. There are others out there that are not as wrapped up in the season. And unfortunately, it's not their doing. I'll move on to public comment now. If you are wishing to address council, please step to the lectern. Proceed after stating your name and address. You speak directly to the microphone and address all comments to this chair. You speak for allowed 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Annie Quillen, 606 East Court, Ludington, Michigan. I feel I'm a bright person, and I've been coming to a lot of these meetings, and I think I'm a pain in somebody's back, I guess you might say, but it kind of boggles my mind because I don't understand your thinking. You just approved increase of short-term rentals to 50, but then you tabled ADUs to January. So that means the investor can come in and sweep up investment properties and short-term rental them, but a person that resides here can't do an ADU until January. Like I said, I don't understand your thinking, you must have some reason behind that, but it really, for a logical, right type person, it just boggles my mind. I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
Anyone else wishing to address council?
I thank the council for taking the time to reconsider the appeal and coming to the decision you did. I do have a question. I am interested, kind of falls under hers. I'm interested in whether the city has considered the local financial repercussions should the state short-term rental bill pass into law. Several folks have plunked $2,100 and more into the local licensing process for application, 3-year licenses, and inspections over the last year for each short-term unit. Will they not be entitled to get a substantial refund from the city should the city's licensing procedure become unlawful? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address council? If not, I'll close public comment, move to miscellaneous business. Council, have anything further to add before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I just have one good thing that I was gonna share at last meeting, but it's 10:30. So it's a little bit late, but I think it's still is applicable. Kudos to everyone in the city and the surrounding townships who have raked, shoveled, tarped, and blown their leaves into the roads to be picked up by the departments of public works. Neighbors have talked to neighbors, neighbors have helped neighbors, and it really makes us realize that we do live in one. So, thanks to everyone for that.
And December is one of the 2 months that we rearrange our schedule. First and third month meeting for city council is accommodating the holidays in those 2 months. Our next meeting is December 13th. And we will decide at that time. Wait, excuse me. Thank you, Council. December 20th, again at 6:30. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. Tonight, we'll have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Winchester, second by Councilor Stevens to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you for your attendance and participation. This meeting is adjourned.
We go.